What's going on, folks? I'm back. You know how this works. I'm back here for my Week 4 NFL picks and locks. And as usual, I'll give you guys my outright winners, also my picks against the spread, and finally my locks of the week. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, our first game of the week, Thursday night, Bears versus Packers in Green Bay. And quick disclaimer, I am recording this video Thursday morning. Hopefully I'll be able to get it out before the game itself, but if not, obviously I'll get it out as soon as possible. But in the meantime, Bears Packers, what should we look at? I think this is as simple as Rodgers versus any of the Bears quarterbacks, because the Packers have an insurmountable lead when it comes to Rodgers versus any of the staff for the Bears. The Bears offense can't stay healthy, they can't hold on to the football. And as long as they're quarterbacked by Mike Glennon, they won't be able to get a lot of points on the board either, which means they won't be able to keep up with the Packers. This is pretty much as clear-cut as you can make it. I know both defenses may be a little bit hurt right now, and if there was ever a time for the Bears to capitalize, it would be now. But look, it's not going to happen. Last week's win versus the Steelers was a fluke, and I am going to take the Packers without hesitation to win in Green Bay behind Aaron Rodgers. The spread -7.5 at home for the Packers. Honestly, I don't think it's big enough. I think it should at least be double digits. So for that reason, I'm taking the Packers on the spread as well. Next, we've got the Saints in Miami versus the Dolphins. And look, Saints 1-2, Dolphins 1-1. Both had surprising weeks. In terms of the Saints, I warned you guys. I told you as far as an upset goes, look for the Saints to blow out the Panthers, and that's exactly what happened. I think the Panthers were really overrated. And on the flip end, the Dolphins got spanked by the Jets, which not a lot of people saw coming. I think it kind of normalized where both these teams are at, and I think the Saints are better. I think they're better offensively. I give the nod overwhelmingly to Breeze versus Cutler, and for that reason, I like the Saints on the road. I think they have way too much offensive talent for the Dolphins to be able to keep up with them, and has the potential of being a shootout, of course, because of the Saints' defense. But when it's all said and done, I'll put my money on the Saints with Breeze, even on the road. And if anything, the spread is +2.5 for the Saints. I think, again, it should be larger. I like the Saints on the road to win by at least a field goal or more. Continuing right along, we have got the Bills at the Falcons in Atlanta in that spanking new stadium. And last time the Falcons played there, they put it to the Packers. And obviously, Packers defense not as good as that of the Bills, but still, look, the Bills offense not as good as that of the Packers. Obviously, though, Bills just came off a really impressive win versus the Broncos, and Falcons narrowly beating the Lions on a questionable call. Nonetheless, though, they are 3-0. They've got the offensive firepower, and they've got the up-and-coming defense guided by Dan Quinn. To me, Bills just cannot keep up in this game. I'll take outright the Falcons to win this game. As far as the spread goes, Falcons -8.5 at home. And similar to the Bears-Packers, I think the spread isn't high enough, to be honest with you. So for that reason, I go with the Falcons to cover the spread. You know, unless there's some crazy garbage time points allowed, but I think we should be safe. Falcons should put up a decent amount of points and a good lead to hang on to this game. Next, we've got the oh-so-exciting divisional matchup of Ohio, Bengals versus Browns in Cleveland. And look, both these teams are 0-3, and it's through no fluke. Honestly, Bengals lost so many of their offensive line pieces, and then the Browns, they just don't really have enough weapons offensively. They're on the rise, but it'll take a couple of years. Rookie quarterback. But as far as who I like, look, Bengals, that defense, a little bit better than that of the Browns. They've been keeping them in the last 2 games versus the Packers and then versus the Texans. Also, they've still got AJ Green. They've got those running backs, new offensive coordinator. They'll take more chances. And even though it's not by much, I like Andy Dalton more than I do Kaiser. So I like the Bengals outright to win on the road. The spread, it is +2.5 for the Browns. And I do think this will be a low-scoring game, but I think it'll get decided by at least a field goal. For that reason, I will go ahead and take the Bengals to cover. Moving on, we have got a game that not a lot of people had marked as a potentially exciting matchup at the start of the season. It is the Rams versus Cowboys in Dallas. And look, I still think on paper, Cowboys, obviously the better team. They're more talented offensively. I give the edge to Dak over Goff, Zeke over Gurley, Dez over Watkins, and the offensive line to the Dallas Cowboys in terms of the edge. But the Rams have exceeded expectations, albeit versus weaker opponents. I think finally this week they'll come up against an opponent, offensively at least, that is legit. But the Cowboys can be exploited defensively, I will say that. So I do think this game has potential to be quite high scoring. If I had to guess, I would say it's a close game heading into the fourth quarter, but then the Cowboys kind of, separate themselves. So as far as the spread goes, Cowboys at -8.5. I do like the Cowboys to win outright, but I think that's a little bit too high for me in terms of the spread. For that reason, I'll go with the Rams. I think they keep it close, and at the end, Cowboys separate themselves by a touchdown, but not by more. Now, going back to the trend of divisional games again, we've got the Lions at the Vikings. Both these teams 2-1, so whoever wins would theoretically share the division lead with the Packers if the Packers win. But look, the Lions got robbed last week with that last second call, and the Vikings whooped the Bucs, so maybe that's an indication the Bucs not as good as we all thought. They did it without Sam Bradford, and I think the Lions come in this game angry. I think they come in this game wanting to put last week's loss behind them, and I think they'll do so at the expense of the Vikings. Offensively, I think the Vikings probably have a little bit more talent with Thielen, Diggs, and Dalvin Cook, but the Lions, look, I like their quarterback a lot better, and I value that more in terms of what you can expect offensively. Defensively, both these teams are good. I think Vikings a little bit better, but like I said, I'm going to go ahead, pick the Lions to win outright. I think they're going to rebound from last week, and the Vikings with Keenum at quarterback, I think he comes back down to earth a little bit. As far as the spread goes, Vikings are at -2.5, and since I do like the Lions, got to go with them for the spread. Now, continuing with the divisional trend, we've got the Titans at the Texans, and look, Titans, impressive win versus the Seahawks, put up a lot of points, and they were able to get the victory. And then the Texans, if it wasn't for some late game Tom Brady heroics as usual, Texans probably shock the Patriots and get the W. I think it was an impressive performance, but at the same time, I think a lot of people are basing their picks this week on what the Texans did last week. And I think that's a dangerous game to play. To me, I don't know if that kind of performance is sustained. They were able to rattle Tom Brady, but Brady, not the most mobile guy. I think Mariota will be able to deal better with that pressure. And at the same time, I'm not sure if that Titans defense will be giving up that many big plays. I think they'd be able to limit the Texans more because they do know them better in this divisional setting. So I do like the Titans to win outright on the road. And as far as the spread goes, Texans are at +1.5 at home. I think, obviously, I like the Titans. I think they can win by more than that, so I'll go ahead and pick the Titans with the spread as well. Moving right along, we have got the Panthers versus the Patriots in New England, and look, I think this is a very clear-cut answer. Again, the Patriots will win. And the reason for that is Brady is so much better than Cam right now. Cam, I don't know what it is. Is he still playing kind of hurt? That offensive line, still not that great. At the same time, if you take away running ability from Cam, he becomes an average to below average passer. He is not accurate. He doesn't have Olsen. Benjamin will be limited with that knee injury. And the Panthers are trying to change so much of their offense just to fit in McCaffrey and justify his selection. But that's not going to translate to getting touchdowns and a lot of points. That's more so just little dink and dunk passes. And to me, that doesn't keep up with a team like the Patriots and Brady, who have Gronk, who have Cooks, who have Hogan, who have Amendola, and I haven't even talked any of their versatile running backs either. Now, you saw the Panthers defense get exposed last week versus the Saints, and on all honesty, this is going to happen in the same way this week versus the Patriots. You know, I love Kuechly and Davis and that front four in terms of the D-line, but they're just overmatched. They won't be able to keep up. The offense is doing them no favors. Give me the Patriots to win at home, no doubt about it. The spread is -9.5. Again, should be higher, at least double digits. I like the Patriots, barring any late garbage time points by the Panthers. Patriots will cover the spread. Continuing on, we have got the Jaguars versus the Jets in New York. And look, both these teams coming off impressive wins. Jaguars beat the Baltimore Ravens, and they beat them good in London. And the Jets kind of shocked a lot of people in beating the Dolphins. But in my opinion, with the Jets, it was pretty much just a win, and a win versus a Jay Cutler-led team, which I don't know how impressive that is nowadays. And I will say this, Jaguars might be on the road, but offensively, they are more talented. Leonard Fournette, better than any of the running backs the Jets have. As bad as Bortles has been at certain points in time, I do like him more than I do McCown. And also, the defense for the Jaguars, they've been playing pretty good football, better than that of the Jets, so they tick off all the check marks. I like the Jaguars to win outright on the road. Jets are at +3.5. Honestly, I expect this to be a turnover-filled game. I think the Jaguars can distance themselves even more than that, so I will take the Jaguars with the spread as well. Pivoting to our next game, we have got the Steelers at the Ravens in a great divisional clash in Baltimore. And look, I know what everyone's going to say. Both these teams coming off embarrassing losses, maybe more so the Steelers, even though it was an overtime loss, but it was a loss to the Bears. Steelers don't play great on the road. I think with these divisional games, they're usually pretty close. But look, I think offensively the Ravens are very limited. Whereas on the other hand, the Steelers a lot better offensively. They just have to play smart football. The defenses, you know, I think Baltimore does get an edge, but not by much. So for that reason, I do like the Steelers a little bit more. I know it's a road game. Big Ben struggles with those, but like I said, I think it'll be a close game. All they have to do is play, you know, turnover-free football, and I think the Steelers can get this win. When it's all said and done, I think it'll be a low-scoring affair. I think it'll be a close game that gets decided towards the end of the game, and if I had to guess, I would say it gets decided on a last-minute field goal. So for that reason, as far as the spread goes, Baltimore is a +2.5 at home. And since my prediction is game-winning field goal, I give the edge to the Steelers to cover. After this, we have got the Giants versus the Bucks in Tampa Bay, and the Giants are sitting at 0-3. The Bucks 1-1 after they got spanked by the Vikings. And look, Odell Beckham definitely looked like he was back last week, 2 touchdowns, and all antics set aside by him. He is a stud, and the Giants, with him back in that lineup, kind of came to life. And honestly, maybe this doesn't make the most sense in terms of football analysis, but I just cannot see the Giants starting out 0-4. I think they have too much talent offensively, defensively. Obviously, that offensive line, that's where the issues are. But still, you know, they've got experience, especially Eli Manning and that crew. I think as a more veteran team, they can take advantage of the Bucks, who are a young and upcoming team. And I do think this will be a close game, but I actually like the Giants to win it late. And I think Odell Beckham has a huge game. I think that defense finally puts some things together, and they look stout. So for that reason, I like the Giants on the road. The Bucks are at -3.5 at home, and since I do like the Giants, I'm going to go ahead and take them on the spread. Next, we've got the Eagles at the Chargers, and look, Chargers sitting at 0-3, and honestly, I didn't think that would be the case going into the season. I really like that Chargers offense a lot. You know, their defense isn't half bad. I just think it's been a combination of gut-wrenching losses, last-second losses by the Chargers on their special teams units, and then Phil Rivers just having some poorly timed turnovers. At least that was the case last week. Now, on the flip side, the Eagles have looked good. Coming out last week with that win versus the divisional Giants, I give them a lot of credit for that win, and they've looked stout, you know. If it wasn't for that close loss to the Chiefs, they would be 3-0, and Wentz has looked legit, and similar to the Giants here, I would like to pick the Chargers at home, but I think I've just seen too many good things from the Eagles, and that's what's preventing me from picking the Chargers at home. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers won, but I'm going to go ahead, pick the Eagles to win. Not too confident in the pick, I'll be honest with you. And if you look at the spread, it'll kind of reflect other people's perception because it's at -0.5 point for the Chargers. This is as even as you could have it. I'll stick to my prediction. I'll go with the Eagles to win. So that is my pick on the spread as well. Next, back to another divisional matchup. We have got the 49ers at the Cardinals in Arizona. And look, both these teams are struggling offensively. We kind of expected this with the Cardinals when David Johnson went down. He just cannot be replaced like that. Also, I think Palmer is on the decline. Then, on the flip side, 49ers, well, they have Hoyer, a shaky Hoyer, and Garcon and Hyde. So when teams focus in on those two guys, I think they become very limited in what they can do offensively, the 49ers. That defense can be taken advantage of. You saw that with the Rams. But I will say this. I think this will be a low-scoring affair. I just don't think either of these teams have what it takes offensively to put up a lot of points. And I do think, I will say this, Cardinals are the better team. They have more weapons. They have more threats. Fitz is there. Palmer just has to have an average game and play turnover-free football. I think they've got more stars defensively, so I like the Cardinals outright. But as far as the spread goes, spread is -7.5 in favor of the Cardinals. Now, I do think they win, but I think it won't be by more than a touchdown. You know, might be wrong on this one, but I think the 49ers can hang in there and keep it close. Moving on to a pretty exciting game for this week, in my opinion. We've got the Raiders at the Broncos in Denver, and both these teams coming off unexpected losses. Raiders to the Redskins, Broncos to the Bills. And look, to me, I think that, this is going to be a tough game, man. That reaction, I think, says it all, because I honestly don't know who to pick. Obviously, the Raiders have the edge offensively, but they're very limited defensively, whereas the Broncos have the big edge defensively, but are limited offensively. I do think, though, at home, I would have to give the edge to the Broncos. I think all Simeon has to do is play mistake-free football. You know, with that being said, lean on the running game. Maybe, you know, don't air it out that much. I think that's what the game plan has to be for the Broncos. And for the Raiders, you know, they're going to have to hope Derek Carr plays, again, mistake-free football on his end, and that he can find those receivers, Cooper and Crabtree, break out in order for them to win. Now, when it's all said and done, I just have more faith in the Broncos defense, and I think offensively they can do just enough to win this game, so I like them to win outright. As far as the spread goes, they are at -2.5. You know, this is pretty tough. I'm going to go ahead and say, though, that they win by at least a field goal at home, if not a game-winning field goal, so I will go with the Broncos to cover. Next, we have got the Colts at the Seahawks in Seattle, and, well, Colts got their first win of the season last week, but it was versus the Browns, and the Seahawks sitting at 1-2, definitely not playing impressive football. Finally had an offensive awakening versus the Titans, though. And I've said this before in the 49ers-Seahawks matchup, but I like the Seahawks at home. 12th man, I think they play good football at home. I think this can be a high-scoring game. We'll see if that comes back to bite me. But honestly, I just think that Indy defense can be taken advantage of. They're not the same team without Andrew Luck. Seahawks look like they kind of figured things out. I think Seahawks can put up a lot of points on this Colts team, and defensively, I think the Colts will struggle. Also, they'll struggle putting up points versus the Seahawks. I think there will be a lot of turnovers on the side of the Colts. So for that reason, I like the Seahawks to win outright. The spread is -13.5, and maybe might be a little bit bullish on my end, but honestly, I'm going to go ahead and take the Seahawks to cover, to go over that -13.5 mark. I think, honestly, without luck, Colts are going to commit a lot of turnovers. I think they'll be shut down offensively, and the Seahawks, to me, will just be able to break their spirit and capitalize on a lot of points. And finally, we have got the Redskins versus the Chiefs Monday night in Kansas City. And look, potentially can be a good matchup if the Redskins show up. With that being said, I do think the Chiefs are the better team. They turn the ball over less. They have a great running back in Kareem Hunt, or at least what looks like to be a great running back in these first 3 games. They've got weapons in Kelsey and Hill. And with the Redskins, it'll all depend on which Kirk Cousins shows up. And to me, I'm going to go ahead and say that an average Kirk Cousins shows up, which to me won't be enough to beat the Chiefs in that defense. For that reason, I like the Chiefs to win at home. However, the spread is at -6.5, and I think this will be a closer game than that. If anything, I think Chiefs separate themselves late, and for that reason, I'm going to go ahead, pick the Redskins. I liked what I saw offensively last week. Going to pick them to cover the spread. So with that, you have the conclusion of my pick'em games, but as far as all you in Survivor Leagues, I will now give you my locks for the week. Starting off with our first Thursday night game, I like the Packers. Feel pretty confident in that game in Green Bay. Shouldn't be an issue. Then Seahawks in Seattle versus the Andrew Luck-less Colts. I think that should be a slam dunk. Also, I look at the Saints versus the Dolphins. I think Saints on the road. I think they can win that game. Also, I like the Patriots at home versus the Panthers. That should be another slam dunk. So let me know what you guys think. Do you agree as far as my pick'ems, as far as my locks of the week? Also, as always, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in future videos.